The night was quiet, the cameras were off, and most of the cast thought the drama had finally calmed down. But what Ty uncovered in that stillness has now turned the entire house upside down. Whispers are swirling everywhere after Ty, allegedly, caught Evelyn in what's being called a secret midnight call, and the fallout has been nothing short of explosive. Insiders claim Ty walked in at just the right moment, hearing enough to know that this wasn't an innocent late-night chat. The words were sharp, hushed, and full of tension. And according to those present, it was clear someone didn't want that conversation exposed. Now, the cast is in chaos. Some are defending Evelyn, saying she's being unfairly targeted again, while others are demanding answers, claiming that whatever was said in that call could change everything. Fans are replaying every clip, dissecting every expression, and trying to figure out who is really on the other end of that line. And as the dust settles, one thing is certain. This revelation has drawn battle lines that no one saw coming. Emotions are running high, friendships are on the verge of collapse, and the family that once pretended to be unshakable is starting to crack in real time. It all started in the dead of night, when most of the house was quiet and the only sound echoing through the halls was the distant hum of the ocean waves outside the villa. Ty had been restless that evening, pacing the upstairs hallway with her phone in her hand, unable to shake the gnawing feeling that something wasn't right. She didn't know what she was looking for, but her gut told her there was more happening, beneath the surface than anyone wanted to admit. Then she heard it, a soft, low voice drifting from the far corner of the house. It was Evelyn, her tone sharp and urgent, as if she was trying to keep her words hidden but couldn't control the anger spilling out in quick, clipped whispers. Ty froze for a moment, straining to catch pieces of the conversation. There were words like, "Don't let anyone find out, and this will ruin everything," followed by an unmistakable pause that made Ty's stomach drop. It didn't sound like a casual call, and it definitely didn't sound like the business excuse Evelyn had been using to explain her late-night absences. Curiosity turned into suspicion. That suspicion turned into something heavier. A sense of betrayal bubbling up in Ty's chest as she took a slow, cautious step closer to the cracked door. She could see Evelyn pacing with her phone pressed tightly to her ear, her face flushed, her brows furrowed, as if the weight of the secret she was carrying was threatening to crush her from that moment. The night unraveled like a thread pulled loose from a tightly woven sweater. Ty pushed the door open just enough to make her presence known, her voice cutting through the tense silence. "Huh? Who are you talking to?" she demanded, her words sharp but shaking, betraying the mix of rage and hurt swirling inside her. Evelyn froze mid-step, her body stiffening as her eyes darted up to meet Ty's. For a split second, she didn't say a word, the kind of pause that speaks louder than any excuse could. Then, almost too casually, she ended the call and slipped her phone into her pocket, her lips pressing into a thin line as she tried to regain control of the moment. "It's none of your business." "Ty," Evelyn said coldly, her voice steady, but her hands trembling just enough to give her away. "Not everything revolves around you. Maybe try minding your own life for once," but Ty wasn't having it. Her pulse was pounding in her ears, her mind racing with 100 questions. She couldn't even form into sentences. "None of my business," she shot back, her voice rising. "You've been sneaking off for weeks, lying straight to my face. And now you want to act like I'm crazy for asking what's going on. Who were you talking to, Evelyn?" Who? The commotion was enough to wake a few of the others, and soon the hallway was crowded with sleepy but curious faces, everyone sensing that whatever was happening was bigger than the usual petty argument. Brandy, still in her robe, leaned against the doorframe with her arms crossed, her eyes narrowing as she watched the scene unfold. Chantel stood a few steps behind her, clutching her phone as if ready to record if things got out of hand. Whispers rippled through the small group, each person piecing together their own version of the story based on the bits and pieces they could hear. Evelyn tried to walk past Ty, brushing her shoulder as if to dismiss the confrontation entirely. But Ty wasn't ready to let it go. She stepped into Evelyn's path, blocking her way with a glare that could cut glass. "If you don't get to walk away from this," Ty said, her voice low and dangerous. "Not this time. Whoever that was, whatever this is, it ends now. Owe me the truth." Evelyn finally stopped, her jaw tightening as her eyes darted toward the others, their curious stares only adding to the pressure weighing on her. For a moment, it looked like she might actually say something. But instead, she shook her head and muttered, "You wouldn't understand," before disappearing down the hallway, leaving Ty standing there with her fists clenched and her heart pounding in her chest. By the next morning, the house was buzzing with speculation. Breakfast turned into an impromptu gossip session, with everyone whispering theories about who could have been on the other end of that midnight call. Some were convinced it was business-related. Others swore it had to be personal, maybe even romantic. The tension was thick enough to choke on, and every sideways glance and hushed conversation only made the situation worse. Ty, meanwhile, was a storm waiting to explode. Her frustration growing by the hour as Evelyn continued to dodge her questions and act as if nothing had happened. What made things even more complicated was the way the rest of the cast began to take sides. Some defended Evelyn, arguing that Ty was overreacting and making a mountain out of a molehill. "People have private lives," one of them muttered, rolling her eyes as Ty paced the kitchen like a caged animal. "Just because she's not telling you every detail doesn't mean she's hiding something sinister." But others weren't so quick to let it slide. "No one whispers like that unless they have something to hide," Chantal said under her breath, her words sharp enough to cut. "Like if she's hiding something, we deserve to know what it is." By the time evening rolled around, the villa had transformed into a pressure cooker. Every interaction was laced with unspoken tension, every meal punctuated by awkward silences and forced smiles. The producers, sensing the growing storm, made no effort to intervene, knowing that whatever explosion was coming would be ratings gold. And as Ty sat alone in the backyard that night, staring out at the waves with her jaw set and her mind racing, one thing became painfully clear. This was far from over. The next morning began with a heavy stillness, the kind that creeps under your skin and makes every glance feel like a question left unanswered. Ty barely slept, tossing and turning as the images of Evelyn's tense midnight call replayed in her mind like a broken record. When she finally came downstairs, her coffee untouched in her hand, the air in the villa was thick with whispers. Everyone was talking, though no one was brave enough to say anything to her face. But Ty could feel the stares, the hushed giggles, the sidelong glances that told her the house had already picked sides. Brandy was the first to break the unspoken silence, her tone a perfect mix of curiosity and judgment. "Sway," she said, leaning against the kitchen counter with a smirk. "Are we going to talk about the little midnight rendezvous, or are we all just supposed to pretend we didn't hear anything?" Ty's jaw tightened as she shot Brandy a glare sharp enough to silence her, but only for a moment. Chantal, never one to shy away from a little chaos, chimed in from across the room, her phone in hand and a grin tugging at her lips. "Girl, it's not a rendezvous unless someone's hiding something juicy. And from the way Evelyn stormed off last night, that's not just business." Ty slammed her coffee cup down on the table, the sound echoing through the kitchen and finally drawing everyone's attention. "I don't know what she's hiding," she said, her voice steady but her hands trembling ever so slightly. "But I'm going to find out. And when I do, nobody better act surprised." The tension was palpable, every word dripping with the kind of restrained fury that made even the boldest cast members hesitate to speak. But deep down, everyone knew that Evelyn wasn't going to give up her secret without a fight, and that realization only made the gossip grow louder behind closed doors. Later that afternoon, Ty's frustration boiled over into action. While Evelyn was out for what she claimed was a quick errand, Tai found herself pacing outside her room, torn between respecting boundaries and feeding the gnawing need for answers. In the end, curiosity won. She pushed open the door, her eyes scanning the space for any clue. Any scrap of evidence that could explain the late-night phone calls and evasive behavior. At first, there was nothing. Neatly folded clothes, a perfectly made bed, her usual chaos disguised under an unnatural order. But then, tucked inside the drawer of the nightstand, Tai found something that made her breath catch in her throat. A small notebook, its pages filled with what looked like scribbled notes, times, and initials. She flipped through the pages with shaking hands, her eyes darting from line to line as her stomach sank. There were dates and times that lined up perfectly with the nights Evelyn had disappeared. And next to them were single letters, initials Tai didn't recognize, but that sent a chill through her. One note in particular made her blood run cold. Meet at midnight. Don't tell anyone, too risky otherwise. The words were underlined twice, as if to emphasize the urgency of the secret being kept. Before Tai could process what she was holding, she heard footsteps approaching down the hallway. Panic surged through her as she hastily shoved the notebook back into the drawer and slipped out of the room, her heart hammering in her chest. Seconds later, Evelyn walked in, humming softly as if nothing in the world was wrong, oblivious to the storm brewing just beneath the surface. Tai, sitting casually on the couch in the living room, pretended to scroll through her phone, but her mind was miles away, piecing together every interaction, every look, every unexplained absence. By evening, the tension had grown unbearable. A casual dinner turned into a minefield of side comments and pointed glances, with Tai barely able to contain the anger simmering beneath her calm exterior. Finally, unable to hold it in any longer, she slammed her fork down and fixed her gaze on Evelyn. "Are you going to keep lying to all of us?" she asked, her voice calm but cutting, the kind of calm that made the entire room fall silent. Evelyn, caught off guard, froze mid-bite, her eyes darting around the table as if looking for an escape route. "What are you talking about now?" Evelyn said, forcing a laugh that sounded more like a plea. "You've been acting paranoid all day, and honestly, it's getting exhausting. Maybe you should take a step back and breathe before you start throwing around accusations." Tai wasn't buying the performance. "Don't play with me," she shot back, her eyes locked on Evelyn's. "I found the notes, Evelyn, the meetings, the calls, all of it. So go ahead, tell me again how I'm imagining things." The room erupted in murmurs, everyone leaning forward in their seats, waiting for Evelyn's response. Brandy's eyes widened in shock. Chantal's phone was already pointed discreetly toward the table, and even the usually quiet cast members were whispering theories to one another. Evelyn's face went pale, her lips parting as if to deny it all, but no words came out. The silence that followed was deafening, every second stretching longer than the last, until finally, Evelyn slammed her napkin onto the table and stormed out of the room without saying a word. As the sound of her footsteps faded down the hall, the dining room exploded into chaos. Voices overlapped, accusations flew, and the producers scrambled to capture every moment of the fallout. Tai sat motionless, her hands clenched into fists, her eyes fixed on the empty doorway where Evelyn had just disappeared. It wasn't just about this secret anymore. It was about trust, betrayal, and the cracks that had been forming for weeks finally splitting wide open. By the time the night ended, alliances had shifted, friendships had fractured, and the villa had become a battleground of whispered suspicions and quiet plotting. And through it all, Tai knew one thing for certain. Whatever secret Evelyn was hiding, it was only a matter of time before the truth came out. And when it did, nothing in their world would ever be the same. The morning after the explosive dinner, the villa was eerily quiet, the kind of quiet that makes you wonder if a storm is brewing just beyond the horizon. Tai sat alone by the pool, sunglasses shielding her swollen eyes after a night of restless tossing and turning. Her phone buzzed, constantly with messages from castmates, fans, and even producers. But she ignored them all. She needed space, or at least she thought she did, till Chantel appeared with her usual air of mischief, phone in hand and a sly grin plastered across her face. "Girl," Chantal began, lowering her voice like she was about to share a state. "Secret. You're not gonna like what I'm about to tell you, but you need to hear it." Ty didn't respond, just sipped her coffee and stared into the shimmering water. So Chantal continued, "I may or may not have been scrolling through some fan blogs last night, and apparently people have been tracking Evelyn's movements for weeks. And guess what? Those midnight meetings aren't as private as she thought." Ty froze, the weight of Chantal's words sinking in. "What are you saying?" she finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm saying, Chantal," said, dragging out every syllable for dramatic effect. "There are pictures, Ty, grainy, but clear enough to see it's her, leaving a hotel with someone, and from the way they're holding hands. Baby, that's not business." The blood drained from Ty's face as her mind raced. Betrayal, anger, humiliation, it all hit her at once, a tidal wave of emotions she couldn't quite keep contained. She stood abruptly, her chair screeching against the tile, and stormed back inside without another word. Chantal, ever the pot stirrer, just smirked and muttered under her breath, "Oh, this is about to get good." Inside, Ty didn't bother knocking on Evelyn's door. She pushed it open, startling Evelyn, who was lounging on the bed scrolling through her phone. "We need to talk," Ty said, her tone sharp and cold. "Like steel." Evelyn glanced up, trying to play it cool, but there was a flicker of panic in her eyes. "About what now?" "Because I'm really not in the mood for another interrogation." "Don't do that," Ty snapped. "Don't act like I'm the crazy one here." "There are pictures, Evelyn. You, a hotel, someone else. Explain that." For a moment, Evelyn said nothing, her jaw tightening as she carefully set her phone down on the nightstand. "You don't know what you're talking about," she said finally, her voice low, almost a growl. "Then make me understand," Ty shot back, stepping closer, her fists clenched at her sides. "'Cause right now, all I see is you sneaking around, lying to everyone, and making me look like a fool." The tension between them was electric, the kind that made it hard to breathe. Outside the room, other cast members gathered, pretending not to listen while pressing their ears to the door. Brandy whispered to Chantel, "Oh my God, she's really going in on her." While Chantel whispered back, "Baby, this is the content the fans live for." Finally, Evelyn stood, her expression hardening. "Fine," she said, her voice sharp. "Yes, I've been meeting someone. But it's not what you think. Been trying to fix something personal. But instead of asking me like a grown woman, you've been sneaking around and playing detective." Ty laughed bitterly, the sound cutting through the tension like broken glass. "Fixing something? That's what you're calling it? Do you think I'm stupid? You don't meet someone at midnight in hotels to fix things, Evelyn. Shh. You don't lie to everyone you claim to care about just to fix things. So please, try again." The room fell silent again, every word hanging heavy in the air. Finally, Evelyn turned away, her shoulders slumping as if the weight of her secrets had finally become too much. "You wouldn't understand," she muttered. "None of you would." And with that, she brushed past Ty, her heels clicking sharply against the hardwood floor as she disappeared down the hallway, leaving everyone stunned in her wake. Ty stood frozen, her chest heaving, her mind spinning with unanswered questions and an anger that burned hotter than ever. By that evening, the villa had transformed into a battlefield of whispered alliances and hushed strategy sessions. Chantal, Brandy, and a few others gathered in the living room, replaying every moment, dissecting every word. While social media erupted with theories and fan conspiracies. Hashtags like #TeamTy and #WhatIsEvelynHiding were trending. And fans were demanding answers that no one seemed ready to give. Meanwhile, Ty locked herself in her room, scrolling through her phone in silence, her thoughts looping through every Interaction with Evelyn, every lie, every half-truth. The pain of betrayal sat heavy in her chest, but beneath it all, there was a simmering determination. If Evelyn thought she could keep her secrets buried, she was about to find out just how wrong she was. The producers, sensing the goldmine of drama, began stirring the pot even further. They arranged for a group dinner the next night, framing it as a chance for everyone to clear the air. But everyone knew better. It was a setup, a stage for the next explosion, and no one wanted to miss it. As the sun set on the villa, the tension reached a fever pitch. Whispers floated through the hallways, eyes lingered too long, and everyone braced themselves for what they knew was coming. Because when secrets like these start to unravel, there's no going back. And for Ty and Evelyn, the war had only just begun. The night of the group dinner arrived, and the atmosphere in the villa was nothing short of suffocating. The producers had gone all out, a lavish table set up on the terrace. Candles flickering in the warm breeze, soft music playing in the background. But beneath the surface glamour, tension simmered like a pot ready to boil over. Everyone knew what this dinner really was: a trap. A carefully orchestrated moment where secrets would collide with raw emotions. And someone, maybe everyone, would come undone. Ty arrived first, wearing a sharp black dress that screamed confidence but couldn't quite mask the storm brewing in her eyes. She didn't greet anyone, just took her seat at the far end of the table, her gaze fixed on the empty chair opposite. Evelyn's chair. Chantal and Brandy exchanged knowing looks as they sat down, whispering to each other. "She's about to blow," Chantal muttered, sipping her wine. "And honestly, I'm here for every second of it." Evelyn walked, and fashionably late, of course. Her hair perfectly styled, her dress a shade of red that made her look untouchable. But those who knew her well could see the cracks beneath the flawless exterior, the tightness in her jaw. The way her fingers trembled slightly as she picked up her glass. She glanced at Ty but didn't say a word, just sat down gracefully, as though daring Ty to make the first move for a few moments. The group engaged in polite small talk, a fragile facade that fooled no one. Then, like a spark to dry tinder, Chantal broke the silence. "So," she began, leaning back in her chair with a sly grin, "are we going to talk about the midnight calls? Or are we all just going to sit here pretending we don't know?" The table went dead silent. All eyes snapped to Evelyn, whose smile faltered for just a fraction of a second before she composed herself. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said coolly, swirling her wine as though the comment hadn't rattled her. Ty slammed her glass down, the sound sharp and startling. "Stop lying," she said, her voice low but shaking with restrained fury. "You've been sneaking around for weeks, Evelyn. Calls at midnight. Secret meetings, and for what? To make a fool out of me. To humiliate me in front of everyone." Evelyn's jaw tightened. "You're twisting things," she replied, her tone icy. "You have no idea what's really going on. But since you want to make a scene, fine. You want the truth. Here it is. Not everything revolves around you, Ty. Some of us have problems that don't involve dragging the whole cast into our business." The words hung heavy in the air, and for a moment, the only sound was the wind rustling through the trees. Then Brandy, never one to hold her tongue, leaned forward. "Problems. Girl, midnight calls and hotel meetings aren't problems. They're secrets, okay? And you know what happens with secrets on this show? They don't stay buried for long. Fans watching the live feed, a special perk for premium subscribers, erupted online, flooding the comments with theories and fiery debates. Hashtag Team Ty began trending again, while others defended Evelyn, claiming there had to be more to the story. Back at the table, Ty stood abruptly, her chair screeching against the stone floor. "You think you can play this game and win?" she demanded, her voice trembling with emotion. "You think you can sneak around and then act like you're the victim? Not this time, Evelyn. I deserve respect. I deserve the truth." Evelyn rose slowly, her calm composure almost chilling in contrast to Ty's raw anger. "And maybe," she said softly, but firmly, "you deserve to hear it. But not like this. Not with everyone watching, waiting for me to break. You want answers? Fine. Meet me after this circus is over, and I'll give them to you. But until then, get out of my face." The table erupted into chaos. Chantal gasped dramatically. Brandy muttered, "Oh no, she didn't." And even the usually composed producers struggled to contain the rising storm. Ty, shaking with rage and humiliation, stormed away from the table, her heels echoing through the villa as the others sat in stunned silence. Later that night, Ty sat alone on the balcony, staring out at the dark horizon. Her phone buzzed endlessly, messages from fans, from family, from castmates, but she ignored them all. Her mind was a blur of anger, pain, and confusion. What could Evelyn possibly have to say that would make any of this make sense? What kind of explanation could justify the lies, the secrecy, the betrayal? Inside, Evelyn paced her room, her perfectly curated world unraveling faster than she could control it. For years, she had built her brand on strength, independence, and control. But now, with the walls closing in and the truth threatening to spill, she felt exposed in a way she never had before. By morning, the villa was a battlefield of whispers and side eyes. Chantal, ever the opportunist, was already planning her next confessional. Gleefully recounting every detail for the cameras, Brandy called her sister in tears, unsure whose side to take. And the producers, sensing another ratings goldmine, began planning an emergency cast meeting, promising that nothing would be off limits. But amid the chaos, one thing was clear: whatever secret Evelyn had been guarding so fiercely, it was only a matter of time before it came crashing into the open. And when it did, the fallout would be catastrophic. And there you have it. The villa is in absolute chaos. The fans are split right down the middle. And the tension between Ty and Evelyn has reached a point that no one could have predicted. The midnight call was just the spark, but the fire it started is threatening to consume everything and everyone around them. What was really said during that call? Who was on the other end of the line? And most importantly, is this the beginning of the end for Ty and Evelyn's fragile truce? Or could this confrontation finally force the truth out into the open? We want to hear from you. Whose side are you on? Team Ty or Team Evelyn? You think this is just another misunderstanding being blown out of proportion for the cameras? Or is there something much deeper and darker brewing beneath the surface? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because you know we're reading every single one. And if you want to stay ahead of the drama, because let's be honest, this storm is only getting bigger, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on those notifications. That way, you won't miss a single twist, a single receipt, or a single explosive moment as this story unfolds. Buckle up, because this ride is far from over.